Melania Trump is threatening to sue Hunter Biden unless he retracts comments he made in a recent YouTube interview, alleging that Jeffrey Epstein introduced the First Lady to her husband, President Trump. The letter, first obtained by Fox News Digital, claims she will seek $1 billion in damages. Biden returned to that YouTube channel for...
Melania Trump has just put Hunter Biden on legal notice, demanding a retraction, an apology, and threatening a $1 billion defamation lawsuit over his explosive claim linking her to Jeffrey Epstein. The deadline has passed. Hunter's response was anything but apologetic.
Now, we're here, maybe to give you the platform to apologize to the First Lady for your statements that you made about her possible connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
That's not gonna happen.
And now, this political feud is turning into a high-stakes legal showdown. In my last video, we explored the growing controversy over Melania's alleged Epstein connection. Today, we're breaking down exactly what was said, how Melania responded, and what this means going forward. The controversy erupted when Hunter Biden, during a recent interview, claimed that Jeffrey Epstein had been the one to introduce Melania to Donald Trump.
Makes some speculative comments about the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein, Melania Trump, and Donald Trump.
Okay, well, they knew each other well. They spent an enormous time together. According to his biographer, is that Jeffrey Epstein introduced Melania. That's how Melania and the First Lady and the President met.
Really?
Yeah.
Epstein made the intro.
Yeah, according to Michael Wolff.
Yeah.
And so I only can go by what people are saying, and I don't know.
A statement he said was based on reporting by author Michael Wolff. Hunter didn't stop there, adding, "The connections are like so wide and deep," hinting at a web of relationships he believed tied the Trumps to Epstein's inner circle. Those words were more than casual conversation. They struck at one of the most delicate intersections in American public life: Donald Trump's marriage, Melania's personal history, and the ever-controversial shadow of Jeffrey Epstein. In politics and media, some stories fade quickly. This one didn't. The moment the claims surfaced online, it caught fire, being shared, dissected, and debated across cable news panels, political podcasts, and every corner of social media. What makes this more significant is the history behind the claim. Michael Wolff's assertion had been published before in the Daily Beast, but after review, the outlet fully retracted the piece.
Reviews over a number of years with Jeffrey Epstein.
And when did you first come into contact with him?
Well, I had known him on a couple of instances. I was a writer for New York Magazine, with the lead writer, and Jeffrey Epstein was among a group of wealthy men who tried to buy New York Magazine in 2004. So I got to know Epstein then. But not long after that, his legal problems began, and he went to jail, and I didn't really get back in touch with him until about 2014, when he asked me to write about him, and we began to have a discussion about that, and then I began, in fact, to write about Donald Trump, and Epstein became a source, a valuable source on Trump in the late 80s and 1990s when he and when Epstein and Trump were the closest of friends.
What was the basis of their friendship in the 90s?
Women and money.
Even James Carville, a prominent Democratic strategist and no political ally to Donald Trump, issued a public apology for repeating the same allegation. That retraction and apology were seen by Melania's team as closing the door on this particular narrative, permanently. From their perspective, Hunter wasn't just voicing an opinion, he was reviving a falsehood that had already been publicly discredited. And when you're the First Lady of the United States, whose image is tied not just to family but to political branding on a global scale, such a claim isn't just offensive, it's potentially damaging in ways that can ripple far beyond gossip headlines. In Melania's view, this wasn't an offhand remark. It was a direct hit on her character, her reputation, and perhaps even her legacy. That's why what came next wasn't a quiet request for a correction. It was a public and aggressive legal counterstrike. Melania's legal counterstrike. When it comes to protecting her reputation, Melania Trump has shown before that she's willing to take the fight directly to the courts. This time was no different. On August 6th, her legal team, led by Miami-based attorney Alejandro Brito, delivered a formal legal notice to Hunter Biden and his lawyer, Abby Lowell. The message was unambiguous. Retract your statement, issue a public apology, and do it by 5 p.m. Eastern Time on August 7th. Or face a lawsuit demanding over $1 billion in damages. The language in that letter was sharp and deliberate. Brito described Hunter's claim as false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory. It wasn't simply about disagreement. It was framed as an attack designed to harm Melania's standing in the eyes of the public. By making this legal notice public, her team also sent a clear signal. This was not just about winning in a courtroom. It was about winning in the court of public opinion. The letter also drew a direct comparison to similar past incidents. Melania's lawyers pointed to the Daily Beast retraction of Michael Wolff's claim and to James Carville's public apology as evidence that responsible figures and outlets had already recognized the statement as baseless. In their view, Hunter Biden's decision to repeat it, especially given his political prominence, was a reckless act that crossed into defamation. Melania's side also anchored their pushback in her own words. Her memoir details meeting Donald Trump during New York Fashion Week in 1998, introduced by her modeling agent, Paolo Zampoli. That origin story, they stress, had nothing to do with Epstein. Zampoli himself has publicly denied any Epstein connection to that meeting. By presenting this established account, Melania's team wasn't just defending her, they were offering a documented counter-narrative. It's important to note that defamation law in the US, especially for public figures, sets an extremely high bar. To win, Melania would have to prove actual malice, that Hunter either knew the statement was false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. Her legal notice made it clear they believe they can prove exactly that. And while billion-dollar defamation claims often raise eyebrows, the size of the figure wasn't random. It was symbolic. It was meant to convey that, in Melania's eyes, the damage from this accusation wasn't a passing embarrassment. It was a high-stakes, high-impact blow to her global image. If Melania Trump's legal notice was designed to pressure Hunter Biden into silence, it had the opposite effect. When the 5 p.m. August 7th deadline passed, there was no retraction, no apology, only a fiery, profanity-laced dismissal. In comments reported across multiple outlets, Hunter's reply was blunt. That's not going to happen. This wasn't just a refusal, it was a challenge. Hunter accused Melania's team of using the lawsuit threat as a bullying tactic meant to intimidate him into backing down. Instead, he doubled down on his claim and even took it a step further, inviting both Melania and Donald Trump to sit for sworn depositions if they wanted to prove him wrong. It was a bold counterpunch, shifting the narrative from defense to offense. Hunter also defended his original statement by pointing back to existing public reporting, including Michael Wolff's book and interviews. While those sources had been retracted or walked back by others, Hunter framed his comments as referencing what was already in the public domain, not inventing something new. In his view, citing prior published claims wasn't defamation, it was commentary. Of course, this argument plays very differently depending on who you ask. To his critics, Hunter's move was reckless, a politically charged attack without verifying the truth. To his supporters, it was an act of standing firm against one of the most powerful political families in the country. Adding to the spectacle was the way Hunter's refusal became a media story of its own. The raw language of his response ensured headlines that practically wrote themselves, fueling the cycle of coverage. News networks debated whether his defiance was strategic or self-destructive. Political commentators speculated about whether he was trying to bait Melania into actually filing the lawsuit, knowing it would keep the story alive even longer. And then there's the personal dynamic. Hunter Biden and Donald Trump are already on opposite sides of one of the most polarized political divides in modern history. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a confrontation layered with the weight of family legacies, public image battles, and a 2024 political climate still thick with partisan hostility. By refusing to apologize, Hunter signaled that he wasn't going to retreat quietly. And whether intentional or not, he forced Melania's team into a decision. follow through with the billion-dollar lawsuit and risk turning this into an even bigger public trial, or let it drop and risk looking like the threat was just a warning shot. A billion-dollar defamation lawsuit makes for a bold headline, but in the world of US law, actually winning such a case is a far more complex and uphill battle, especially when both parties are public figures. In the United States, defamation laws are shaped heavily by the landmark 1964 Supreme Court case New York Times Company versus Sullivan. For public figures like Melania Trump and Hunter Biden, the standard isn't just proving that a statement was false, it's proving actual malice. That means showing that the person making the statement either knew it was false or acted with a reckless disregard for whether it was true or not. That's a steep climb in any courtroom. And in cases involving political figures, the courts tend to give even wider leeway to speech, especially when it relates to public discourse. Hunter's defense, at least from a legal standpoint, would likely rest on two pillars. First, that he was referencing prior published material from a credible author. And second, that his statement was part of a broader conversation rather than a deliberate, malicious lie. On Melania's side, the case would revolve around showing that Hunter had reason to know the claim was false. They'd argue that because the Daily Beast retracted the original Wolf claim and James Carville issued a public apology, Hunter was on notice that the statement was discredited. Choosing to repeat it anyway, they'd contend, meets the threshold for reckless disregard. There's also the matter of damages. A $1 billion figure isn't random. It's both symbolic and strategic. In defamation cases, high numbers grab public attention and send a message about the seriousness of the alleged harm. Even if a jury ultimately awarded a smaller sum, the headline alone signals that Melania considers this a high-impact attack on her reputation. And then there's the risk factor for both sides. If Melania moves forward with the lawsuit, the discovery process could open the door to deposition testimony, private communications, and any documentation relevant to the case. That's the part many public figures dread, because it means both sides' personal histories can be pulled into the spotlight. Hunter Biden has his own share of public controversies, but Melania Trump, too, would face intense scrutiny if the case proceeded. Defamation suits aren't just about facts, they're about strategy. In many cases, the filing of a lawsuit is itself the end goal. To create a chilling effect, force a public retraction, or shift public perception. Whether Melania intends to actually see a courtroom, or whether this was primarily a high-profile warning shot, remains to be seen. What began as one controversial claim in an interview has now spiraled into a public and legal confrontation between two of the most recognizable political families in America. In Melania Trump's eyes, the allegation about Epstein wasn't just gossip. It was a direct threat to her reputation, her family's image, and her personal history. For Hunter Biden, the lawsuit threat became a test of principle, a moment to push back against what he sees as intimidation and political theater. Whether this ends in a courtroom or fades into the background will depend on the choices both sides make in the coming weeks. If Melania files the lawsuit, we could be in for a legal drama that drags through the election season, pulling in depositions, sworn statements, and possibly damaging revelations. If she doesn't, the question will linger over whether the billion-dollar threat was about justice, or about sending a warning to anyone who might repeat the claim. One thing is certain. The court of public opinion is already delivering its verdict, and every word, every statement, and every refusal to back down is shaping that outcome in real time. So now I'll put it to you. Was Hunter Biden reckless to repeat a retracted claim, or was he simply engaging with information already in the public sphere? And was Melania Trump's billion-dollar legal threat a justified defense of her name, or a strategic political move? If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future coverage of stories that shape the headlines. This one is far from over, and when the next development hits, we'll be here to break it all down for you.